Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Northern Celtic podcast for another week of Celtic goodness. I'm joined by your regular hosts, Isaac.
Hello, everyone.
And Dan.
Hello, everyone.
And so, I'll hand you over to Isaac.
Thank you very much. So, right, I shall be kicking this week off with the regular instalment of flashback results, and I shall be popping it up on your screen right now. And I hope everyone's well as well, and all the changes that are happening now through Convoy. Thanks for that, Dan. And and that everyone's doing okay. So our result for today is going back to the 28th of October 2018, which was a 6-3 win away at home against Taverner's Reserves. I picked this game out in particular because it was the game where Mental got subbed off, and because he was in so much anger, he punched the dugout. I don't know if, Cam, you might have been there to watch. Were you there, do you think?
I think I do. I definitely remember seeing Mental walk off and punch the dugout. I'll definitely say that.
Sheet, so that suggests to me that you were injured at that point.
Yeah,
so
as per usual, with all these throwback fixtures.
Yeah, you were just injured the whole way through. So we won that game 6-3. I mean, Curtis on the score sheet getting 2, Martin getting a hat trick as well as Charlie getting another goal. But there's 2 yellow cards in there for Nat and Mental, and I think Nat was generally in the protest of Mental on the pitch, and then Mental coming off and punching the dugout in frustration. I also remember in that game that there was a tackle between 2 of our own players, of Pope and Paul Moss, slid into each other, and there was a good 10 minutes trying to mop that up before we carried on playing. So that was quite an interesting game to do remember. Cam, is there anything else you remember about that, or was there? It was a very long time ago. If
I'm honest, it's I can just barely remember the end of Mental walking up and punching the dugout. If I'm honest, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be of any much use adding more to that.
And to be honest as well, that was also, I remember we wore the white kit, and I famously remember Mossy doing that slide tackle into Pope, and the mud just did not come out of that kit ever again. it just did not come out. So it was definitely an eventful game. But hopefully as it gets towards pre-season and we get some actually games and we can talk a bit more about the current fixtures. But at this precise moment in time, we're going back down the archives. So it's really interesting sometimes to see what it is that we've got. But without further ado, I shall hand over to Mr. Dan Templeman, who's going to tell us about what we're doing today.
Yes, hello everyone. So it's a bit of a different one today. We're going to talk probably about a bit more of a serious issue within football and probably just general life. And this week's topic is about mental health, which but everyone probably listening to this has probably suffered with it in some manner, big or small. But the first question, this question's for both of you. How has it affected you, this within football or just generally?
I mean, Cam, do you want to start, and then I'll...
Yeah, I mean, during games, overall, I've always been able to keep a fairly level head, and I try not to get weighed down by any losses or mistakes I make, and trust me, especially at the beginning, when I first signed for Celtic, there were a few of them. But
that was all part of the learning.
Yeah, it's all a part of the learning curve, and really that season where we got no points, the end of my first season, I mean, really it was a test, but no, I felt I always stayed fairly level-headed and everything through that, but during my injury periods, I would say I definitely missed the game, and that impacted at home. Of course, there were many other factors as well, because especially when I done my ankle, when I was on the sofa for about 2-3 months with ligament damage, especially because, ironically, the first day I got home from hospital and I put my foot up was actually one of the hottest days of the year. I think this was 2 years ago.
You did it right around Easter time, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was right at the end of April. And
it was really warm that year.
But yeah, no, and then seeing everybody outside, I mean, of course, you look on social media, and I remember seeing all the guys at college playing football. And I really felt like I was missing out almost, and just pitched up at home. I mean, of course, that had to be done. I didn't have a choice at all. But
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, Cam. But what you'd say, you've always been a really positive person. I think that's always something really hard to do because if everyone sees you as a positive person and that they always come to you for that kind of positivity, it's really good that you can provide that. But who motivates the motivator at the end of the day, and it's really important to to look out for each other.
What about you, Isaac?
Well, I mean, I've had my fair ups and downs of football. So the first biggest problem, like I say, I had was in my youth football. My last season with Fram, I had a knee injury. So it was about 3 or 4 games into the season, and I jumped up for a header and landed all my weight onto my right knee, and I stood up and it was stuck at a right angle. I could not run.
Sure.
And I tried to run it off, but I couldn't do it. I had to come off. And for about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 weeks, it was a constant battle of trying to play, doing about 10 minutes, do a sprint, and then that was me. It killed me. And I'd be dead, and I'd be come off again. And, I mean, the tough thing was that I then had to deal with sitting on the bench and watching the guys play, and through that time I lost my captaincy and kind of lost my place in the team. I felt personally, not just as a player but as a person as well, I felt quite neglected. And for me, my outlook for that was eating, and because I was eating because I wasn't playing, and because I wasn't playing, I was eating. So, and because I wasn't playing, I wasn't losing the weight. So I was constantly, it was a vicious cycle of me eating and putting on weight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I decided that was enough and I left and joined Northern where I really found that love again. But there has been times, recently in the last couple of years where I'm open to say that I have, suffered with a lot of depression, as Cam's seen the worst of it. It's he's had to put up with me through the worst of it, Cam. So but
it's all right. That's what friends are for, though.
Exactly, but it's like I say. I suffered with it. I still suffer with it today, but not as much as I did, maybe a couple of years ago, due to something that happened in my life. But to be honest, like playing football was such an outlet for me, and if I hadn't been playing football, I think I'd have been in an even lower place than what I was. So when you talk about having, mental health issues within football, I think it's also really important to look at it as an outlet for it. Because if you're struggling with it and you're finding that it's something that is constantly on your mind, every time I went and played with Northern, I went and saw the guys from football, it took my mind off of what was going on in my life. And that was so precious to me. And if I couldn't do that, it would really upset me. So football was almost my lifeline throughout my depression in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I can relate to sort of both of you and them aspects, like Cameron being the positive person, because you've both experienced when we'll have a game, even if we get a result, and I'll still be annoyed just with my personal sort of efforts. And I know Cameron has tried. He always tries and says, "Don't worry about the bad things, just focus on the good things." But for me, it's not easy, because I feel like even if we win or even if we lose, if I don't play well, that's just bad for me, and it just sort of does head in. It's not an easy sort of subject to talk about whatsoever, but it's like opening up to friends, family, or just a random stranger if they offer. It's a bit odd, like talking about it does really help a lot, and I've had it in football and in life as well as you, Isaac, but it's just finding that missing piece, so to speak. So hobby, activity, just something that just takes your mind off it. And football is the one for me, as it is for probably all 3 of us. It's just that way of disconnecting from the world and just doing something we enjoy without sort of worrying about all the other issues, if that kind of makes sense.
I'll tell you what, I tell you what, Dan, you do have a really rare mindset in my mind for a football player, because even when, like you said, I've seen you score hat tricks before, and you've still walked off dwelling on that one shot that you missed. But that drive, that you focusing on that shot drives you away to be better, and that's why you're so clinical.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that camaraderie and that having a team with you, and this is the one thing that I've found with Northam, is that there is such a team spirit in the group, and there's no one in the group that I don't feel like I could go and talk to if I had a problem. And I think it's really important that you have that, and it is important to talk to each other. We're not taught to do that as blokes, but it's something that's really important, and I think that's the really nice thing about where we are as a club. I feel like it's, and there has been times where I've gone to Adam or I've talked to, Mossy about stuff, so it's really important that you have those conversations.
So moving on to the next question for you both, you kind of both have touched on to it, so I don't know how far we'll get into this specific question, but what's the personal experience you've had with it within football, if it wasn't like them exact moments, like Cameron, you getting injured, and Isaac, you getting injured for Fran? Have you had any other sort of within football that have sort of affected you mid-game, so to speak?
I think I would say definitely the beginning of last season, when I first came onto the committee, I suffer also a lot of anxiety, so it was like the nerves of trying to step up to that level, and I saw everything that had happened off the pitch even, and it did worry me, and it made you think, like, we don't deserve what's happened to us, like we don't deserve this. But what's been really nice is to see that development this year, and like I say, I'm in a much better place now, and doing this every Sunday, and like I say, it's my love, and I wouldn't give it up, and I'm Northam Celtic through and through, and I owe a lot to this club, because it's got me through all the hardest times of my life. So,
Cameron,
I'm not sure. Probably.
If it is the injury, you can keep talking about it. I'm sure you have more to say.
No. Definitely.
It's hard, isn't it, Cam?
Yeah, it
is.
is.
Talk about it. It's hard, and we can't sit here and pretend we know everything.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I was going to say, it's really important that you can have these times, and I think it's important we broadcast this. It shows that even, we've been doing this for about 7 or 8 weeks now. This is a subject that's hard to talk about. You can see that, like you say, for Cam to sit and answer that, it is hard, and it's okay to have a second to think about it.
And also being sort of quite a youngish age as well, it's quite a big topic to still talk about. Plus, I don't want to phrase this, but it's like, bloke, we're not really the sort of people who are willing to open up, because the common phrase is, it shows sign of weakness. So actually talking about it is a lot bigger deal than you probably want to realise. But once you sort of start talking about it, I think it takes a big weight off the shoulders, which I think's a really good thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cam, were you going to say something?
No.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I just didn't want to interrupt you. If you're going to start talking. This is something that we found quite difficult doing our podcast, is that in the future we will be doing them from in the same room. But because we are currently in not necessarily quarantine, but we're at that stage where we still can't meet up because of the distances between us. So we're doing it over a call, which means that trying to work out who's going to say what has made it quite difficult. But I think we've done quite a good job as things go. But I would say that, like I say, it's huge in teenage and our age at the minute. It's such a big problem in society, not just football. But I think that it's a huge task to tackle. But I think you've got to start with what you can do for yourself and the people around you. Even if you're not sure, if you think, that they're fine, it's still sometimes just ask if someone's all right. Like Cam, you'll sometimes do this to me. Like, we'll just be driving along from football, doing something, and you'll just out of the blue randomly just ask me how I'm getting on, because you know my situation. And and I really appreciate that, and that's it's just but we don't often say this to each other because it's not something that we open up about. So it is tough, and it's something that people have to work on, and it is a steep slope. But if you have the right people around you, surround you with positivity. Is my biggest advice. Don't stick around people that make you feel like you're worth less than you are, and that's just as important at a football club because you need people to support you around you. If you don't, get out and get somewhere where you are.
Yes. Plus, it's also sort of every little thing helps. Even if it's like just talking to a friend or something, you probably realise once you've sort of done it how much of a relief it could be, which does really help. So, Cameron, I do have one question which is more directed for you, if you're willing to have a crack. So, like, when you're injured for like that long, what's the sort of hardest part about sort of coming back from it, like on the mental side of it? Because obviously, say once you're back to, not say match fit, but back to sort of training, is going in for tackles sort of a mental like challenge about trying to like hurt yourself again? Because it's quite an interesting sort of thing to do when you sort of come back from an injury, which, because I know I've done it before, and it's if it's tackling, it's a 50-50 because you're about to go in for it, but you don't want to because you don't want to really end up back in the same dark place, so to speak. So
definitely, I remember coming back from that injury, and even though it was, like I say, I think I'd done it in April, and I think it was getting towards the end of August, perhaps even the beginning of September, before I attended a training session. And I remember doing that, and I remember our manager, I think it was Adam at the time, did notice, I'd messaged him before knowing exactly what had been going on, and he actually sent me out on the field to train with the goalkeepers rather than playing in the El Rondo at the time. So I'm really thankful for that. But once coming back into it, I mean, overall, I'm always quite a guy who'd go into tackles quite heavily anyway. I think that's an occupational hazard for me as a defender anyway. But overall, I think the thing that affected me overall the most was actually kicking the ball, because I injured my right foot, which is my strong foot, even though I say I'm just as bad with both. But I've always felt ever since the injury, I'm a lot less likely to stick my foot through the ball as much as I would do. So it passes before the injury, I ping a long ball or do a Cameron Abbott special, as they used to say. But I'd definitely say but definitely since the injury, I've been a lot less likely to attempt passes like that. Not because in the end of actually almost hurting myself, but in the fact that after the injury, I've gotten into my head that I've almost weakened my right foot. So I'm just scared it's not going to get there. But But no, overall, I mean, while I was injured, I did sit and look out the window, but at the same time, every opportunity I got to come and watch football and engage with the team as much as I could, I took every opportunity. I remember I went and watched a few games with Fram, with you, Isaac.
Yeah, we did.
And it's sometimes having the right, like Isaac said, having the right people around you, keeping you motivated, and trying to turn this from something which has prevented you from playing football into an opportunity to learn. Like, I sat back and I remember at Fram, I was watching them play and I was absolutely idolised on their fullback. And
was that big Levi Chapman at fullback?
I can't remember. I think it might have been. I think his name's Kit. I think his name was. But...
Yeah, no, it was. It would have been Kit. It's right. Levi would have been too busy sat on the bench, I reckon.
Yeah. but no. I remember watching him, and I genuinely, once I came back, I attempted to put some of that into my game. So it's just like I said, the right motivation, the right
Just
people
playing
around
smarter,
can change your view. Hopefully.
I totally believe what you said is right, Cam, and I think that's really important. People learn that, and your mindset has made you the better player, and because you not because of your athletic ability, but because you play smarter, which is something that you can work on at any time, and you're the living proof of that. That if you have the determination and the effort to work hard and learn and better yourself, you can do it.
Yeah. So, like with the mindset sort of thing, that it can sort of come and go, can't it? I feel it can sort of come up.
It changes.
Not expected. So for me, I'll talk my experience before I asked this question, because I was sort of thinking, like when I'm playing a game or something, and then I'll have maybe 2 or 3 chances and I'll miss, and then my mental sort of side of it sort of drops off because I feel like I can't do it. So you sort of like at that brick wall where you just don't feel like you can get through it. So I don't try and overcomplicate it, but I just try and keep doing the simple stuff. But then I sort of feel like when I can't do the simple stuff, I've got to try and do the tricky option and just try and do it myself, which isn't the best way to sort of go. And so with you two, how often does it sort of mental health sort of come into when you're playing, say, midstream in a game? Because for me, it happens probably every other game, pending on sort of my personal performance and all that sort of stuff, which is, it's not easy to play through. And you sort of, obviously, you got to take the positives as they come, but still, it's sometimes sort of quite hard to sort of bounce back straight away after sort of always sort of neglecting yourself and sort of looking at the poor side instead of looking at the positive stuff, which is probably the better way to do it, which I know I'm going to try and work on a bit more this season, which is more on a personal note, but it's going to hopefully turn into a lot better for me. So what's your opinions on that?
I mean, from my point of view, like you say, it's all game relevant, isn't it? So, like, if something goes wrong, it's all about not focusing on that and focusing on the next thing. Because if you focus on something that's happened, you can't change that.
No.
You can't change what's happened. Think about what you're doing next. If you don't do that, you're dwelling on what's happened. You can't look at what's happening, and you lose complete sight of the game. And that way, that's how it goes downhill. So it's rather than if something bad happened, you go, oh, it's happened, deal with it. Right, this is the next thing. Let's make it better. Let's just do right. Let's just play this pass. Let's play that through ball. Let's take this shot. It's just little things that make it better for you from a centre back's point of view.
That confidence up.
Yeah, from a centre back's point of view, you make a mistake, it normally leads to a goal. So it's it's very crucial, and and I mean, Cam, I mean, I'm not trying to call you out here, but like I say, you've scored a couple of own goals, but it happens, doesn't it? At defence, it happens, doesn't it? We've all scored own goals as a defender.
Yeah.
But it's how you push forward. Like I say, it's not about the mistakes you made. It's about how you learn from what you've made as your mistake.
What about you, Cameron? What's your sort of view on it?
No, I 100% agree with Isaac, and I tell you what, it's ridiculous. We always seem to be coming back to the topic of me being injured. But I do remember one.
It's a regular theme for you, isn't it, Cam?
But there was definitely a game. I think it was it beginning of this season, I think, and we didn't have any subs. It was sort of I think it was half time that I actually pulled something. I can't remember exactly anyway. But I knew we didn't have any subs, and we were getting. It wasn't an absolute flat loss. The game was very much in the balance. So instead of sitting on the side, I think it might have been, but instead of sitting on the sideline moping or trying to get off the pitch, I just decided to put some deep heat on and change the way I played for the rest of that game.
Yeah.
And
like
rather than attempting, so for example, rather than trying to sit on the toes of their winger and an attempt to tackle him as soon as the ball. I dropped back. I attempted to try and predict where he's going, because there was no point if he took that touch and I didn't get that tackle in, there was no way I was going to catch him with the state I was in. So I just dropped back, and instead of lunging in for tackles, I sort of sat back a lot more. And I remember I even got to one point where, I wasn't going to get the winger, but he took a big touch out to the wing, so I actually just slid in instead, which is quite risky in a Sunday League game. But
you got to take a risk sometimes.
But it worked out more than better, if you know what I mean. It worked out fantastically, and if anything, like I mentioned it in another video, that game actually turned, personally for me, it turned out to be one of the best games of the season. But
what a player.
But no, it's getting on that it's just like Isaac said, you can't sit there and focus on what's happened. You got to focus on what you're going to do about what's happened.
Yeah, 100% agree. And well, that's sort of the end of the questions, because obviously it's a topic we could talk about for hours, and we don't quite have that on this podcast.
No. Yeah.
But thank you too for both sharing your experiences on the subject. I know it's not an easy subject to talk about, but it's good to sort of show people it's all right to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that, I'll say, anyone that's listening, that's struggling with this sort of thing, like I say, listen to some of the advice we've given. I mean, if you're going through an injury that's, dwelling on your mind a bit, listen to the advice that Cam's given you. If it's not just necessarily that, it's if something that's happened in your life, like to me, look for football as an outlet, look to try and pursue more in that time. And if it's like for Dan, where it's something that's, it's in games and learning to deal with it, it's about developing yourself as a player by using what Cam says to do and learn and it's change your mindset, because you can do that, and it's so crucial that you can, because if you do that, it means you can learn and you will feel so much better for it. I honestly believe that. Am I right to lead on to the next bit then, Dan?
Yeah, that is fine.
Yeah,
just
fantastic.
To finish off on it's like you just said. It's just going through that brick wall. Because once you get the other side of the wall, you feel a darn sight better. And now I will hand you back over to Isaac.
Definitely. So I put a message out into the group chat, and I understand that this is a very touchy subject. And I thought, I wanted to get the players in on this, and if they had anything they wanted to share. And one of our players, Alex, who is comes and plays and does a lot of running on the sideline as well for us. You can't have the players without having the 12th man, or having a player that will do everything else as well, like you've done. It's really important, and he does come and turn up and shows all his heart. And he's done a little recording for us, and I'll now hand over to him, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his experience with his parents splitting up and playing football alongside that.
So, podcast, it's Alex. I regularly play for you guys on a Sunday when I can. So, on the subject of mental health, I was a young lad. I was only about 6 or 7 when my parents split up. And obviously when you have to go to football with 1 week with your mum, then 1 week with your dad, being at primary school was very difficult. And football was always something that I looked up to and what I used to look forward to on a Saturday. I played for Trinity Red Devils on a Saturday. And yeah, the love of football is just always loved it. Even now, I struggle now because I had a serious accident when I was at high school. I broke my arm and knocked a lot of confidence down. But obviously being with you guys is slowly, getting back up, and you guys play me when you need me, and that's great, and I just can't thank you guys enough, and thank you very much.
Alex, thank you very much for sending us that video. It's it's a real big help for me for helping Dan produce this podcast. So it's really nice to hear another person open up about their story. So thank you very much for that. Again, this has been week 8, I believe, the podcast. Can you believe we've been doing this for 8 weeks now, guys?
Yeah.
It's mental, isn't it? It's,
Been good.
keep it going. Hopefully, when the season starts, we'll have a bit of more fresh content to give to you, which is what we're looking for. But in the meantime, while we're stuck, keep tuning in, and we'll keep having something for you to listen to every week. And so I shall hand over to the mighty Lord and our master, Cameron Abbott.
Right then, thank you everybody for your continued support of the channel and all the videos. If you like it, like the video please, and consider subscribing if you want to hear more Celtic goodness every week. It's goodbye from me, goodbye from Isaac,
Peace and love, guys.
goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye. Thank you for letting me lead this week and also letting me discuss this topic. Also, if you have any questions or you want to get in contact with us, just leave a comment down below. And thank you for watching.
Thank you everybody. We'll catch you next week.